The Daily Code Snippet. In our previous episodes about the history of CSS, we went over how the support of embedded fonts came with CSS2. At the time, only Internet Explorer supported this initial release, and there were only a few fonts with copyrights that allowed distribution on the web. These early fonts were EOT, or Embedded OpenType, from Microsoft and Monotype. Because EOT was proprietary, there was a move to release free web fonts and have a wider range of browsers to support them. This led to the release of TrueType and OpenType fonts, TTF, OTF, and eventually Microsoft was convinced to allow EOT to be royalty-free. But by that time, there was a more widely used compression algorithm that EOT was not compatible with, so that led to the release of Web Open Font Format, or WOFF. Both TTF and OTF are larger in size and slower to load because they are not compressed. EOT is compressed and smaller, but since it is poorly supported by most browsers, it limits its use. WOFF loads faster than TTF and OTF because of compression and has wide browser support. WOFF2 is a newer generation of this format that is 30% compression gain over WOFF, but is not as widely supported as the original. SVG fonts were developed when support for the web fonts was not widespread. Currently, its support is only with Safari and Android. With SVG, glyph outlines are rendered as SVG, or Scalable Vector Graphic Elements. SVG doesn't support font hinting. Font hinting provides additional information which allows the rendering of fonts at small sizes so they remain legible. So SVG is less useful for body text, and with SVG, you can't select individual characters or words. So hopefully this explains why so many font file formats are needed with @FontFace, so that the custom font will display properly across different browsers and devices. We mentioned that there are other properties associated with @FontFace. While we won't go over every property, it is important to touch on a few more in addition to those required: font family and source. Font weight is used to indicate the weight of the font in the @FontFace rule. For a particular typeface, different styles and weights can be downloaded. The font weight is used to explicitly state the weight that should be used. Font weight accepts the values of normal, bold, and a number between 1 and 1,000. The higher the number, the bolder the weight. In general, 100 is thin, 300 is light, 400 is normal, 500 is medium, 600 is semi or demi-bold, 700 is bold, and 800 is extra bold, and 900 is black. Font weights below 200 will have accessibility issues, especially with a low contrast color ratio. Here is an example for the bold weight of Sentinel. @FontFace. Font family Sentinel. Source URL /assets/fonts/ Sentinel bold web font .woff2 format WOFF2. Font weight 700. Font style indicates if a font is styled as normal, italic, or oblique face. Italic fonts are cursive and use less horizontal space. Oblique fonts are just sloped versions of the regular font. Font style accepts the values of normal, italic, oblique, or oblique with an angle specified, such as oblique 23 degrees. The value of the angle can be between -90 degrees and 90 degrees. If no angle is specified, the default is 14 degrees. Here is an example for the italic weight of Sentinel. @FontFace. Font family, Sentinel. Source URL /assets/fonts/ Sentinel italic webfont.woff2 format WOFF2. Font style italic. For accessibility reasons, avoid italicizing large sections of text because these will be difficult to read for those with dyslexia. Font stretched is used to describe fonts that may be condensed or expanded. Acceptable values include normal, semi-condensed, condensed, extra condensed, ultra condensed, semi-expanded, expanded, extra expanded, and ultra expanded, or a percentage between 50% and 200% with no negative values. Normal would be 100%, so 50% is ultra condensed, 75% is condensed, 125% is expanded, and 200% is ultra expanded. This property is useful for the newer variable fonts that support a wider range of stretching. Most other fonts have particular widths that correspond to the acceptable key terms. Here is a demo of a variable version of the Google font Roboto called Roboto Flex. If we were to use Roboto Flex, we might write out a statement like this. At font face, font family, Roboto Flex. Source, URL, Roboto Flex -VF WOFF2, format WOFF2 supports variations, URL, Roboto Flex -VF WOFF2, format WOFF2 variations, font weight 100 1000, font stretch 25%, 151%. You can see that there are some differences from what we have been learning. Since variable fonts are new, they are not fully supported. The format WOFF2 variations is current, but will be deprecated, while WOFF2 supports variations is a future format. Two numbers are indicated for font weight and font stretch, since you should indicate the range of supported weights and percentage of stretch. When using a variable font, you will want to indicate the amount of stretch you desire. Dot somewhat narrow, font stretch 60%. Dot extremely wide, font stretch 150%. Before stretching a font, consider accessibility. Those with dyslexia or other cognitive conditions may have difficulty reading fonts that are condensed too much, especially those with a low contrast color ratio. Presented by Designers Learn Code.